Not every track iRacing has scanned has ended up in the game. This could be for one of multiple reasons. It could be because the track shut down, there was a licensing disagreement, or even just an overall lack of demand. So today, I will go over 8 tracks that iRacing themselves has confirmed at one point or another to have an agreement with or even scan the track. Each of these tracks I will drive in Assetto Corsa and then give my opinion if iRacing should add it to the game or if it's okay to leave it on the back burner while other projects are in effect. At number 8 we have Willow Springs. This track is a 2.5 miles long and hasn't been changed in any major way since it was opened in 1953. The reason I include this at number 8 is because there is a pretty decent chance that this track will be added into iRacing soon, even as close to a couple weeks from the making of this video. That's because iRacing released a teaser of a surface that looks suspiciously like Willow Springs, but before that, there was another scan. In 2013, iRacing was explaining what their new tech track feature was going to be and listed Willow Springs as one of the possible tech tracks that they would bring from their scans into reality without fully completing the scenery. A lot of iRacers will be very excited to have Willow Springs added to the circuit because it corresponds with a lot of other games that you might have played where Willow Springs was an included track. I personally remember ripping this track in my teenage years at Project Cars, and that was a lot of fun. Just driving this track for this video, even as Assetto Corsa, seemed like a blast for the past as I was really working on being able to take this BMW through all of the fast corners, trying to lift as little as possible and then really woeing it down for the tight turns in the middle section. Overall, I would really like to see this track included in iRacing, and who knows, we might even see it sooner than we think. At number 7 is the only American oval in this list, and that is Montgomery Motor Speedway. This is a half-mile oval racetrack just west of Montgomery, Alabama, that was opened in 1953 and even held a few NASCAR Grand National Series races on both a dirt surface and an asphalt surface in the 1950s and 1960s. In 2013, this track was alluded to being scanned, and in 2014 it was confirmed in a forum post that this track was scanned, but in the decades since, we have not seen any sign of Montgomery Motor Speedway. The reasoning for this is probably just an overall lack of demand among the oval community, because this track, while loved by its local short track goers, does not see much NASCAR sanctioned action, but does see a bi-weekly schedule of certain type of cars like tour mods and late models. This track was probably scanned to try to fill the hole in short tracks at the time, but since then there have been bigger named short tracks to get added to iRacing, which really just left this track on the wayside, which is probably okay from most people's perspectives, although it would be cool to have another half-mile short track like this. At number 6 we have Utah Motorsports Campus, aka Miller Motorsports Park, which it was called at the time. This racetrack stands alone as a behemoth flat American road circuit, which is unlike really any other track in the country. But I could not grasp my head around this. Call me a tiny oval peanut brain, but I just got lost so much on this track. This 4.5 mile oversized go-kart track currently sees racing from the Trans Am West Coast Championship, but has also seen some races with ARCA Series as well as the American Le Mans Series. Currently there is not much organized racing going on at this track though, but there is a lot of testing for car manufacturers as well as track days. This track would actually be an interesting addition in iRacing, as I'm not sure if people would actually like it or not. It's so technical, it's so long, there's so many corners, but at the same time it's different than really many of the other experiences that you can get from the current batch of tracks. But I think that the reason that iRacing has not put this into the game yet is because of the change of ownership that happened seemingly just after they'd scanned the track. This was another track that was said to be one of the possible tech tracks around 2013, but with the sale happening in 2014 and 2015, that probably brought that off the list. At number 5 is another possible tech track from 2013, and that is Moroso, aka Palm Beach International Raceway. This road circuit that clocks in just over 2 miles long was built in 2008, but was unfortunately closed in 2022. Just like Utah Motorsports Campus before this track is completely flat with some really technical sections but an extremely long straightaway. This track was originally intended to be fit for high-level endurance racing competition, but unfortunately it never really saw that, with only the occasional Trans Am race, and really what it was used for mostly was NHRA drag racing. Again, this type of completely flat circuit would be an interesting add to iRacing because it does feel like a go-kart track in some places, but at the same time I also did not really personally enjoy driving this too much, but that could just be me being biased against this type of racetrack. I'm not super sure why iRacing never added this track to the game. Maybe it's because of the overall lack of demand with not really seeing any big time races, but at the same time, now that it is closed, and it's probably even harder for iRacing to want to put it in because they have shown in the past that they are not super open to adding tracks into the game that have already closed down, with the only exceptions being when there is a huge demand from the iRacing community. We've covered 4 American tracks, and now it is time for the British invasion. At number 4, Mallory Park. This track was originally an oval circuit built in 1956 that was 1 mile long and right-hand turning, and while that still exists to an extent, it has been added onto, so now there is a car circuit and also a superbike circuit. This track has seen racing from British F3 and Formula 2 in the 1970s, but today the only racing that's currently there in a major way is the Mallory Park Race of the Year. Mallory Park, along with the next 2 entries on this list, were confirmed to at least have been signed by iRacing to be scanned in 2012. Whether they actually got scanned or not is not 100% known. But out of all of these British invasion tracks, Mallory Park is probably the one that I would be the least excited about trying out, just because it didn't pop out to me really in any way. It did really just seem like an oval with a couple extra turns glued onto it. At number 3 is Croft Circuit. This track was opened in 1964 but closed for a bit between 1981 and 1995, but these days it hosts the BTCC along with TCR UK and has also been a former place for British F3 and British GT. Fun fact, the fastest race lap ever recorded on this track was from Sergio Perez back in 2008 in an F3 race. This track I think would be great for iRacing because not only does it hold road circuit races, it also hosts rallycross races, or at least it used to up until recently. If iRacing did in fact scan this track along with others back in the 2012 era, the extra scan for the rallycross track would actually be very interesting, but now that I think about it, they probably would not have scanned that in the first place back then. But overall, I would like to see Croft Circuit in iRacing after my test drive because I just liked how the track flowed at least a little bit better than Mallory Park. The flowing sections felt fast and the technical sections felt challenging but also fun. But why hasn't iRacing added this track? Well, because maybe they never scanned it in the first place, or because just a lack of demand because there's no BTCC cars in iRacing. At number 2 was the track that I had the most fun learning for this video, and that is Thruxton Circuit. Yes, maybe I am just NASCAR oval guy who likes to go vroom vroom and make fast turns, but hey, this track is fun. Opened in 1950, this track currently hosts the BTCC along with the BSB, but also holding Formula 2 races from the 60s to the 80s, and British F3 and GT into the 2000s. This 2.3 mile and 12 turn track is really characterized by its ability to maintain speed, especially through the back half of the track. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we'll get this track in iRacing anytime soon though, as there has been no word on it since this track was announced to have been signed back in 2012. But for our last stop on the British invasion, at number 1, we have a track that has been confirmed to have been scanned, but also deconfirmed to have been being built, to the point where it has been a meme in the iRacing Twitter community for the past 8 years, and that is Rockingham Motor Speedway UK. This track was opened in 2001 and was Britain's first full-sized oval. But calling it an oval would do it a bit of a disservice because the oval speedway is actually more of an oblong rectangle, and it is something that I have wanted in iRacing for a very long time purely because of how different it is. The oval is 1.5 miles long with 4 distinct corners that take on essentially 4 different shapes. But it was its road course that got more attention towards the end of its life with BTCC, British GT, and British F3. The road course is about 2.5 miles long and is essentially a roval made out of the original oval and the infield portion road course. Overall, I didn't have too much fun on the road course, but I'm not a big fan of rovals in general, so I'm probably a bit biased on that, but I would want Rockingham on iRacing so much just for the oval. And this track was even confirmed by iRacing to be scanned in 2015. But unfortunately, in 2020, Steve Myers himself tweeted that he did not see Rockingham UK being built because it is not relevant anymore. And why is it not relevant anymore? Because unfortunately, Rockingham Motor Speedway UK was closed down. So unless the community members can muster up some sort of support for Rockingham UK like they did with North Wilkesboro, it seems like Rockingham UK is just not worth the development time to complete or even make into a workable tech track. Which is a shame because I am always ready to try out a new weirdly shaped oval in iRacing. Leave a comment down below on which of these tracks you would like to see in iRacing the most and which of them you could probably do without. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.